Hello, and welcome to the EDRM Global Webinar channel. My name is Mary Mack. I'm the CEO and Chief Legal Technologist for EDRM. Today's webinar is Emoji in the Workplace, sponsored by our fabulous Guardian partner, Ricoh USA. Our faculty expert is our friend Matt Mahan, National Director, Information Governance and eDiscovery Sales for Ricoh eDiscovery. Now, we welcome your questions and your feedback in the console. All your questions will be anonymous on this webinar. It will be recorded, the webinar, and available for your replay at your convenience. We also have some attachments and links for you underneath its tab, including a robust 20-plus page white paper on this very subject of emojis. We're very grateful you're spending time with us during our challenging times here. So a little bit more about Matt. Matt worked his way up in Ricoh to his National Director, Information Governance and eDiscovery Sales position. He's been working with Ricoh for well over a decade with multiple certifications: Information Specialist, the Information Governance Professional, the Certified eDiscovery Specialist certifications. He holds a bachelor's degree from the University of California, San Diego, in mathematics and applied science. Matt has made emojis his passion, and we are delighted to host him. Thanks for being here, Matt. Take it away.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate you having me, and thank you to the audience for joining. This is definitely a subject I am passionate about and been speaking on for over 4 years, and really recently with the white paper and everything else going on, excited to educate the legal profession about the importance of this topic and some of the challenges it presents. So quick, going to go through the agenda. We're going to go through some history, talk about emoji at work, the adoption of business collaboration applications, especially the exponential growth during the pandemic, some HR nightmares and examples, some translations and meanings. Then we're going to dive deeper into eDiscovery technology. Fortunately, as eDiscovery evolves, the technology associated with emoji has evolved as well. And then we're going to go through some takeaways. So starting with history, I think you all are familiar with the Emoticon there to the left. It was invented in 1982 at the Carnegie Mellon University. The professor was having some issues in the chat room with some students. People didn't know if, because there's no tone in the language of the chat, if comments were a jest or a joke, or if they were serious. So colon right parenthesis became the emoticon smiley face. Then in 1999 in Japan, famous emojis were invented. And obviously now with collaboration, different applications, text messaging, etc., they've grown in use, and especially in the workplace. So here's a brief history in terms of how emojis are used, and really the Unicode Consortium, which is the standardized where you go to get an actual emoji standardized and put across platforms. They have now approved over 3,019 and approving new emojis every single year. And we'll get into that in a little bit more detail later on. So in popularity, 2015, the Oxford Dictionary created some controversy by having the Tears of Joy emoji itself, the pictograph itself, as the word of the year. Not the word emoji, but the Tears of Joy emoji. So obviously linguists were like, why is an actual emoji pictograph a word of the year? Well, for good reason, because it's the most popular emoji used worldwide and also in the United States. And you can see that here, both utilization by men and women and across all regions in the US and also globally. Also interesting to see across the United States some different emojis that are favored in first, second, and third. Most notably to me, in the West Coast, it's the only one where the thumbs up emoji made the top 3. So in terms of the usage increasing, in 2016, we had 2.3 trillion mobile messages, and 73% of the connected population utilized emoji in their communication, with 33% actually in the workplace. So 2016, we had 33% of the connected population using emoji in the workplace, and that jumped in 2019. 3 years later, we had 92% of the connected population utilizing emoji, with 61% using them in the workplace. Now, the Adobe survey is not out for 2020 yet. Be interesting to see if they do come out one for 2020. with the increased utilization of collaboration applications such as Teams, Slack, Zoom, and all the chat windows and the ability to use emoji, how this has increased. So diving a little bit deeper about emoji use in the work setting, only people at their level, we have 36% of the individuals that are only going to use emoji at their level at work, 13% regardless of that level, 12% in internal-facing communications, and only 4% in external-facing communications. I find that number is going to grow the most dramatically moving forward, but time will tell as new surveys come out. Cultivate report came out with a survey recently regarding leadership usage of emoji in the workplace. And actually, this survey was conducted on organizations that had used Slack starting in January. And they basically did this study between January and March of 2020 and then April and June, so the first 3 months and second 3 months of this year. And some of their findings is the most common emoji by far is the thumbs up. So that differs from the most popular emoji utilized worldwide in all communications, which is the tears of joy emoji. But in the workplace, it seems that the thumbs up was the most popular. We'll discuss that a little bit more later as well. Negative emoji were more uncommon. I think from just my own experience, probably you can think of your own experience, that makes sense. You see a lot more smileys and laughing face emojis than you see frowns and negative ones. COVID-19 remote work did not affect emoji usage. I was surprised to see this, but what makes sense is these organizations were already leveraging a collaboration application like Slack and maybe already were using emoji in the workplace. So the fact that the pandemic hit, their communications really didn't change. Their culture hadn't changed. They're already used to using emoji. Because from what I'm seeing across different applications as well as email, definitely an increase in emoji usage. People tend to stick to the same set of emoji, which makes sense. And one reason why that is, especially in text messages, if you look at your favorite emoji to the left side, so your most utilized emoji show up first. So it makes sense that you continue to use those because you don't have to thumb through all 3,000 emojis that Unicode has accepted or that are within your emoji set. Managers use different emoji than rank and file. So managers seem to use emoji more for appreciation, and employees use them for acknowledgement, so they received the message, that they understood the message, or they understood the task at hand. So it's interesting to see how different individuals within an organization actually use the emojis. Emoji use is different between companies, which makes sense. Different companies have different types of cultures. And we'll get into some custom emoji as well, especially how they're used within Slack. And emojis are tailored to respond to particular types of messages, which is a good sign. As we talk about some more definitional standards associated with emoji use in the workplace, and maybe limiting the amount of emojis that should be used and how they're used and in what communications, it's good to see that some of these are tailored for specific message types. And this goes out a little bit further. 71% of the users use fewer than 10 emojis, and 50.7% use fewer than 5. So again, I think that's a good sign, limiting the emoji that you use, and ensure that you understand what that emoji means. And there's a definition standard within the organization and within your business unit of what those emoji mean and when you can use them. So adoption of business applications. As you can see with this graph out of the Wall Street Journal, really interesting to see, not surprising to see, come right before April, a huge exponential increase in the downloads of business applications. And one stat that just blew my mind is that Microsoft reported that Teams had grown to 75 million daily users, and they had a March figure with one day at 4.1 billion meeting minutes. So this doesn't include Zoom or other types of collaborative applications. In Teams alone, they had 4.1 billion meeting minutes. And just goes to show the shift from people working at home and having to leverage different applications in order to communicate and conduct business. Some limitations on emoji retention in Teams. I found this interesting, and hopefully this gets updated. I'm going to highlight that bullet point in the middle, that likes and other reactions are not retained for Teams chat and channel messages. Reactions from others in the form of emoticons so I also think they mean emoji here, aren't supported by retention policies. And what does that mean? I'm going to show you a little Teams chat that I created for the sake of this presentation. If you look at that red box, if you hover over a message, you can like, you can heart, you can smile, you can have an angry face, you can put a reaction in terms of an emoji to that actual comment. So the fact that that is not retained in Teams, I could see is problematic in the future, and hopefully they allow that to be retained so that information can be collected and potentially could be important and part of an investigation or litigation in terms of how an employee felt about a specific message. And I love this. I threw this in here, even though this is a 2017 article from Kelly Twigger, who's well known in this space. She wrote this article about, is Slack the new email, 3.5 years ago. So Slack, now we have Teams, now we have Zoom, now we have the pandemic and people working from home, and more messages and communications are now being used in these types of platforms, and with that, more emoji usage as well. So she definitely was a thought leader in this space and thinking about this, and as new employees enter the workforce and they demand different types of communication channels, you're going to see more and more of this and less email, and email will be used for different types of communications. So this is another thing I came across recently doing some research during the pandemic, this React Channeler, which was an application developed in 2017 by Slack that allows you to create workflows, custom workflows for certain messages in Slack channels using custom emoji. I'll show you a picture of what that looks like. So you can see in this scenario, they have a gavel, a custom gavel emoji. And for any message that has that emoji, it denotes a final decision being made. And so those final decisions being made get routed to a different Slack channel. So now there is a history in one Slack channel of all messages that contain a final message or a final decision. Another way that Slack leverages this workflow specifically is they have a custom light bulb emoji. And for any new idea, innovative idea, they add the custom light bulb emoji, and that sends that message to a Slack channel that is shared by Slack's legal department, as well as their outside counsel that handles patents for them and patent applications, and that expedites the patent application process and the communication of this innovative idea. So interesting to see that custom emojis are leveraged to actually build workflows within Slack. And that can also add to the utilization of emojis in Slack and in the workplace in general if you have workflows built with them.
Boy, Matt, that's really going to complicate privilege review, isn't it?
It certainly can, and be important to understand, and we'll get into this towards the end on how many custom emoji are out there, but that there is some governance, some sort of dictionary or library of what emoji exist and what they mean and how they're used and where these messages go. But yeah, definitely can cause some challenges, and important for attorneys to ask, this type of information of how emoji are used, what they specifically mean within your organization, and make sure that those messages are properly collected, preserved, reviewed, and produced. And again, with some of the eDiscovery technology, we'll get into that as well. So why is it important to make sure you properly collect and understand emoji? I think this article is fantastic with some examples and need for coverage for James. Seriously, James called off again. What's the deal? Why does that surprise you? Handicap emoji, handicap emoji, handicap emoji. So the utilization of 3 handicap emojis is similar to using exclamation marks, using more than one exclamation mark when you make a really exclaiming something. And obviously 1 would be inappropriate here, but imagine if this email is collected without the emoji. Doesn't look so bad. So if there was a discrimination claim, you're doing an investigation, you're reviewing, and you come across this email, why does that surprise you? Doesn't look too discriminatory, or doesn't look like a damaging document. But imagine being in depo and opposing counsel going back and actually producing the email with the emoji. So again, really important to ensure that you understand where emoji are used and if they have been used and that they're collected and produced accordingly. If not, you could be left with some serious surprises and have some evidence come against your case that you're just not aware of or expecting. Another example of a text exchange: Todd's leave is up tomorrow. I don't think he's going to be able to return right now. What should we do? So you have the game controller and the no, that means game over. Okay, so if he doesn't return, we terminate. Thumbs up. Like, yep, okay, we terminate. So they're already talking about termination before the FMLA is even up and really violating his rights. Not an appropriate place to use emoji. And here's another one with a complaint. Mary came into my office today. Apparently John is making suggestive comments about something she was wearing yesterday. Can you please look into this? I'll be out on vacation until next week. The response: are you kidding me? She complains about everything. Yeah, I'll look into it. Painting nails emoji. So, are you kidding me? She complains about everything. Yeah, I'll look into it. Doesn't seem like this individual is taking this complaint very seriously, which by itself can be problematic. But if you add the emoji, painting nails emoji means I have better things to do, you're really double downing on that, like not taking this complaint seriously. So it just adds evidence and some tone to that text. Additionally, they added skin tones to emoji. The good news is it's actually, through a study of over 1 billion tweets and messages and how these are utilized, it actually encouraged more social inclusion. So it's been a very positive thing. I think it's really important to note that this exists in case during an investigation of some sort of harassment or discriminatory claim, you could see if certain skin tones are utilized in certain types of messages. The world's first emoji translator, Keith Broney, hired in 2016 by a consulting firm in the UK, and really his job was to look at help organizations leverage emoji to market. We'll get into why that is with different cross-platform emojis and how they appear and what they mean across different generations and geographies, because there's a difference in meaning. To date, not for legal cases, and the case law, which we'll go through later on, has stated that for now, the jury is the one that can decide what those may mean. But there hasn't actually been a need for a legal certified translation of emoji to date, more just to make sure the jury can see what those emojis look like in line with the messages.
Hey, Matt?
Yes.
We have a question. Is there a translation website for those of us who do not use the combination of emojis to say things? And then the secondary, is there anything that we all should avoid doing at all costs?
So, it's a great question. I haven't come across one that does. I think you could probably do a Google search to try and find some. You can also, Twitter is a good resource to actually search for tweets that use specific emoji, and then you can see how they're being used in that universe and maybe how they're being used in a certain culture or time. So that's a good place. If you're doing that for an investigation or work for legal discovery purposes, that's good. If you're just doing it for fun, I wouldn't do it necessarily on a work device because you may find some things that you may be inappropriate for work and you weren't aware of. So that would be my recommendation for translating, or maybe that would be a situation where if there is a lot of emoji use and employees aren't being cooperative in terms of their meaning, then hiring an emoji translator may be required in that specific case. In terms of avoiding doing things at all costs, I would avoid using an emoji that you didn't know what it meant. I would, the smiley face obviously is safe. We'll talk about the thumbs up one a little bit later. But it's really important to limit. I'm a big proponent of emoji use, especially in the workplace, but really limiting it and making sure there's some definitional standards around what communications they can be used in and which emoji you can use. If you don't know, I wouldn't be searching through and just start, trying to talk about what you had for lunch or what you were doing after work. It could be a secondary or different type of meaning for that emoji, especially depending on who you're saying it to. And so if you're not aware of what it means, I wouldn't try to get too creative. That maybe is a good don't do at all costs.
Excellent.
So here's some new emoji coming out. Like I mentioned before, Unicode Consortium continues to approve new emojis every year. I think one of my favorite ones is the one coming out in 2021, which is the face with spiral eyes. Probably a lot of us feel that way right now, and maybe these times inspired that new emoji. So here's some translations, though. We just spoke about some translations, and this gives you some idea of how emoji can be strung together to create a sentence. And in 2016, the Chevy Cruze came out with their first press release for that vehicle, all in emoji. And then they came out with an English version a little bit later. Obviously, they were marketing to a younger generation with that vehicle. Coffee is one of my favorite ones. Everyone wonders what is that? It's a cute little bunny and dog, and seems very innocent, but that actually means hair of the dog. So maybe this person, instead of going to Starbucks, is referencing going to the Star Bar or getting some type of Irish coffee instead of a normal coffee. So different types of strings of emojis can mean different things, and just I think the key is to understand that and know what you don't know and not ignore it. So you see a message like this or a text message like this, and you think, oh, maybe they like, cute furry animals. Take a second look. Stop and think about what that message may actually mean. So clarity or confusion, another important thing to note regarding emoji is they're supposed to provide some clarity around the tone of the messaging, maybe provide some language, add some context. It could be language itself, but across different operating systems, they appear differently. So for example, here on the left-hand side, this was back when I had Lotus Notes. I received this message. It was sent from an iPhone, but it almost looks like a sleeping mask for the sunglasses, kind of a sideways smile and a thumbs up. Then on my iPad, which is the only place where work and home intersected for some time, I received this message, which is the smiley sunglasses cool emoji with a thumbs up. So sent from an iPhone, received on an iPad, that's probably exactly what was sent to me. Then you move over to my Samsung Galaxy work phone, and on the preview screen, you see kind of a mean-looking emoji, kind of a smirky smile. The eyebrows are slanted, the sunglasses are off to the side a little bit. Not as cool and happy as the iOS version of the emoji itself. And then actually opening up the email on the phone to review, there's no emoji at all. They're gone. So again, when doing an investigation or collecting and doing a review, most of the time, it probably won't matter. The fact that you collected the emoji and reviewing the emoji itself is a win compared to the past where maybe these were accidentally, unintentionally not collected and left out of the collection itself. However, if it's a smoking gun or really important document or in communication, it may be important to note what type of device it was sent from, so you know what the sender actually sent, and what type of device it was received on, so you know it was received. One advantage of like a Slack or a Teams is that everybody's within the same application. So if you send a Slack message in Slack, the emoji that you send is what's going to be received, and same within Teams. But when you're doing text messages and phone and email, it could look very different. Here's an example of that. Marketing mishaps that Samsung dishonors the Cookie Monster by using the cracker emoji as the cookie emoji. So World Chocolate Chip Cookie Day, celebrating Cookie Monster, and there's a bunch of saltine cracker emojis, and you can see that'd be kind of embarrassing in terms of a marketing. If someone received this on an iOS device, they may see the Apple version of the chocolate chip cookie, but if they're on their Samsung, they got saltine crackers. Now, happy to share that this has been updated, so there actually is now a chocolate chip cookie, but you can see on the right, it's a good example of how different these emoji look based on the type of device that you have. Another marketing mishap is the Houston Rockets fired social media manager for their tweet. They were playing the Dallas Mavericks. The Rockets were beating them pretty handedly at the end of the fourth quarter. And the Rockets marketing manager tweeted out, "Just close your eyes. It will all be over soon." And you can see it's the horse head with a gun pointed at it. be good to have a policy in place that using weapons, probably in a marketing tweet or any type of communication from the organization is prohibited. This individual got terminated. That was the last tweet they sent on behalf of the organization. But again, some definitional standards and policy around what emoji to use. This person was trying to be creative, probably trying to be funny. They'd beaten the Mavericks, but obviously people didn't find it very funny and definitely inappropriate. And the use of emoji in highly regulated industries, that can be problematic if there's certain terms that can't be used. And if you think about stockbrokers sending out a message to some of their clientele saying, hey, I have a great stock tip or a new fund, you should check it out, and then have a bag of money emoji associated with it, that could definitely be deemed as promissory and against any FINRA or SEC regulations. So it's important to have a policy. What type of emoji can be used? What types of communications can they be used in? And what are they going to mean? And where is it prohibited? This one seems pretty obvious, but you can't make stories like this up. So a Nevada attorney was arrested for trying to intimidate witness with a rat emoji. Basically, this attorney created a burner account, like a fake Twitter account, and then was sending messages with the rat emoji and adding these witnesses. So they were receiving these tweets that they were added in with the rat emoji, trying to intimidate them so they would not provide testimony at trial. So this attorney had other issues as well, sneaking phones into the prisons and things of that nature, but definitely unethical and outside the professional responsibility. In terms of, we talked about emojis looking different. I think this is great. Apple iOS has decided to put a smile behind the mask. So instead of someone looking solemn, maybe sick, ill, now they're going to be happy. They got maybe a new comfortable mask with their favorite designer or sports team or whatever they represent. That's great. But you got to remember, if you send that emoji and someone else has a different type of device, unless they follow Apple's suit, they may think that you're ill or not feeling well, and that communication could be miscommunicated. So really important, again, the Unicode Consortium has some standardization across what emoji will look like, and if one platform is going to take the lead, maybe everybody changes their emoji as well. And what I mean by having standardization, think about a cow, for example. So emoji, the Unicode will have, this is what the cow is supposed to look like. Here's the code for the cow. Someone may have a cow head. Someone may have a brown cow. Someone may have a white and black spotted cow. Because of intellectual property rights, each of these organizations, Google, Apple, Samsung, they create their own pictographs of these emojis. They just know that it's supposed to be a cow, and that's why they differ across different devices. I think changing the tone from sick, wearing a mask to a smiley face could be a good thing. It can also be a bad thing unless the Unicode Consortium changes the face with mask emoji to a face with, happy face with mask emoji or something of sorts like that. Additionally, the infection prevention and control is trying to help eliminate or mitigate the spread of some diseases with tends to the use of emoji. It's a universal language. So instead of saying wash your hands, if you had a little hand clapping emoji along with a bar of soap, remind people to wash their hands, something that would catch their eye and something that everybody would understand. Also, schools, I found that teachers giving feedback, especially some constructive feedback, that students have taken that feedback much more positively when it has a smiley face emoji. So, hey, great job on your essay. Here are a couple of punctuation errors that we found. However, overall, really appreciate your thought process and your argument and a smiley face. So even though, they're pointing out, you want our teachers to teach our students and point out their mistakes and help fix their mistakes so they can learn, when they're getting a lot of this feedback online. I know I have 3 kids distance learning right now, and in different school applications and chat applications, they're not able to hear their teacher's feedback. They're not able to see the teacher's feedback. They're not able to feel that care and that passion for teaching. So maybe an emoji can help with that. That being said, still think there should be some some training to these teachers on which emoji can be good, which emoji can be bad, and again, limit and provide some standardization of how those emojis are used and when. So secondary meanings can emerge quickly. This is a great example, and something that during a investigation needs to be thought about is not just what emoji was sent and in what context, but also when. So the peach emoji can be a fruit, the peach emoji can be a body part, but then last September, Lizzo tweeted, "I am the peach emoji," an MENT, and it became an anti-Trump symbol. So now all of a sudden you could be making a political statement, you could be talking about your snack, or you could potentially be harassing somebody with the same emoji. So obviously if someone had tweeted this emoji back in 2018, it wouldn't have any sort of political connotation associated with it. It would be one or the other two. So important to know the timeline. If all of a sudden you saw more of these tweets coming out or utilization of this emoji at the end of September, early October 2019, you may put it in a different context. So really important to see how fast if someone that's as popular and has as many followers as Lizzo can change the meaning of an emoji or even provide a third meaning of a specific emoji. Same thing happened with the OK symbol. So you might be, someone sends you a tweet or sends you a text message or an email and you write back OK, but this also has like a white supremacy meaning to it. So it's been added to the hate symbols list. So different organizations sometimes will adopt certain emojis so they have those secondary meanings. So it's really important to know, again, if you don't know what the emoji specifically means and how it's used in your workplace and your culture, don't get too creative on trying to send back an emoji response. And Facebook does this all the time. They update for the content moderators what some of these emojis mean, the new meanings, what type of hate speech or what type of category that it could be under, so they can flag messages and comments that contain certain emoji. So emoji case reference continues to grow and grow exponentially, even though there's probably not enough cases that have the proper references to date. Eric Goldman is a law professor at Santa Clara University School of Law, really an emoji law expert, and he does a lot of research associated with when emoticons and emojis are mentioned in case references. And you can see it's grown in 2019. You look at what the most litigated emoji are, the smiley, the winky, the sad face, the gun, kiss face, ones that we typically use the most. I think it's also important to note that smiley could include all kinds of different smileys. There's many different versions of the smiley emoji, so a lot of them get lumped into that one category. And he even, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Some case law. So let's go over some case law. So from Israel, court says emojis can signal your intent. These are the emoji that actually signaled said intent. Dig into that a little bit further here. The judge stated that the emoji-laden text message sent by defendant 2 on June 5th, 2016 was accompanied by quite a few symbols as mentioned. These include a smiley, a bottle of champagne, dancing figures, and more. These icons convey great optimism, although this message did not constitute a binding contract between the parties. This message naturally led to the plaintiff's great reliance on the defendant's desire to rent his apartment. And thus the plaintiff was granted 1 month of rent because he lost that rent because he took his property off the market. And again, interesting on what emojis are used here. You got the dancing, but be the jury. Be the jury yourself and take a look at this string. Is this a positive, celebratory sort of feel to it and tone, or does it look negative, like, no, I don't want your apartment? I think we could all agree that it's positive. Why is there a little chipmunk in there, squirrel? I don't know. It could be one of favorite emojis. That's what Eric Goldman hypothesized, and I actually agree. Maybe it was just one of those emojis that was most utilized, and it got thrown into a string. So if you see a string of crazy emojis, and you're like, well, these all look positive, but there's this random one, it may mean something, or it just may be the fact that it was one of their most used emoji, thus got thrown into an emoji string. So some more case law. Microsoft in Munich. So this was an employee that was on leave. They had an asthma condition. The doctor stated, hey, you need to get away from the workplace. We feel like maybe some of the air that you're breathing at work may be causing this. Also requested that the individual increase their physical activity, saying some of the right physical activity could help reduce symptoms. There was an anonymous tip from another employee that said, hey, I've seen this employee, they're on leave for some asthma condition or something, but they're moving houses, they're moving boxes, they seem to be very physically active. So they hired a private investigator who saw the same thing, and the employer terminated the employee. When they understood it was under a doctor's note, and following doctor's recommendations, they said, hey, honest mistake, we didn't know, our bad, we're sorry, had we known, we wouldn't have terminated. That being said, there was an internal email that had emoticons, so you can see the smiley emoticon there. Did a great chat with you about Elena. And the response, yes, he did. Thank you for your help. That deserves a big smiley and 3 exclamation marks. So again, where is it inappropriate to use emoticon and emoji? Probably in any sort of HR documentation, investigation, termination, conversations. Not a good place to use any type of emoji or emoticon. Let's stick to the standard language. More case law, United States versus Ulbricht. This is one of the first cases. An Honorable Catherine Forrest ruled that emoji and emoticons are part of the evidence of the document, and that the jury should read them. They are meant to be read. The jury should note the punctuation and emoticons, and a court transcript that just left out the emoji and emoticons and just had the word emoji or emoticon in brackets was not sufficient. It was important for the jury to actually see them in context, see them in line, and be able to make a determination on what the communication meant themselves. Some more case law, United States versus Wesley. This is a good one as well. So a probable cause warrant was addressed, and ATF agents who understood the language used by some gangs and drug dealers understood that the gas emoji was a symbol for gangs and the cloud emoji referenced drugs. 2 things I wouldn't have known about. And the court denied the motion to suppress the evidence from the Facebook accounts because the text within these Facebook messages, along with the emoji and along with this ATF agent's expertise and understanding of how these were used in communications, they did not suppress the evidence. They allowed the warrant to stand. So here's Eric Goldman, the professor I mentioned earlier. As he mentioned, the exponential growth of emojis being referenced. He also references, the struggle with the overall technology. And when you're doing searches in Westlaw and Lexis, the inability to actually search for the emoji pictograph itself, and the fact that judges reference smiley, for multiple different emojis. So you can't really get that specific when doing the searches. And hopefully over time, communication about emoji as well as technology will evolve so we can better reference and do research. So speaking of evolution, eDiscovery technology continues to evolve. So if any of you have collected from a cell phone, a mobile device, and did a Celebrate forensic phone collection and got the standard Excel export report, you might see something like this. I really made this very simple just for this actual presentation, but this is what it will look like. And in the past, again, you would not be able, until last year, you wouldn't be able to collect the emoji. But now, the emojis are collected, and using the Seago UE emoji text pack within Microsoft, highlighted there in the red box, you can actually view these emoji and not even view, but also search. So you find here I'm searching for the messages that contain the thumbs up emoji, and it will go to each body of message that has a thumbs up emoji. Now,
hey, Matt,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, can you review that last part again about the pack that you put into the Microsoft in order to search?
Yeah, so the Seago UI emoji is a new text font and text pack. It actually, from my understanding, comes standard with the new Office 365 or upgrades. So as long as you have it, you'll be able to search for the emoji within this Excel document after doing a collection with Celebrate.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Now, yeah, and some attorneys, do not like the view and reviewers, and I understand reviewing for investigation or litigation these types of reports. And so we'll get into some of the evolution of review platforms. I remember when I first started doing and doing some of these collections of cell phones and delivering these reports, and this is how you need to review, there's some frustration of, hey, where's the bubble, and where's the picture in line, and why doesn't it look like the text application on the mobile device? Well, think about it, just the back end. You're pulling the back end database with all this message and information, including the recipient, who was sent to, the date and time of that text message, and what was actually in the body of the text. And that's all you could get. There wasn't a technology associated to review it more in line and more what looked like an actual text message and text message thread and exchange. But Relativity has upgraded, so you can better view messages from Slack, from Skype, from iMessage, other text messages, Bloomberg, and it makes it searchable. And you can include in searches on emojis, and even pictures come in line. So I'll give you a couple examples of what that looks like here in a second. But also what we mentioned before about how emoji appear different in different types of platforms. And again, most of the time, maybe not pertinent to the case, but it states here when emojis are rendered in HTML5, Relativity uses the native browser to render the emoji. So it's going to be browser dependent. What I'm going to show you in a second, it's not just browser dependent, but it looks like it's also operating system dependent as well. And when the emojis are imaged, meaning that you're actually doing a production, if you want to image these to a TIFF or for production or PDF, the Google set of emoji is utilized when doing that production. So it's quite possible that a message could be sent from an Apple device, sent to a Samsung device, so an Apple emoji received, the recipient received a Samsung emoji. You could review it in Internet Explorer and see the Windows set of emoji, and then you produce it, and it's the Google set of emoji. So again, important that's captured, probably not relevant 99% of the time, but that 1% where it's a smoking gun, it might be important to note that and then provide some supplemental information surrounding what type of device it was sent from and what type of device it was received by. So here is the thread detail view within Relativity. And what's interesting here is you can also see the sticker, like the custom sticker, which is great. So this looks much more like an email or a text message thread or a Slack channel thread of communication, much better to review, to redact on, to produce than that Excel spreadsheet that I showed you earlier. Now, pulling out to the full interface view, on the right-hand side, you can actually see the metadata associated with the string. On the bottom, you see a timeline and when this text string is happening, and you see a picture of photos within this text message string, and you can see some emoji as well there towards the bottom. And I'm going to actually have you guys focus on those two messages right now so I can show you the difference of how it looks depending on your operating system and internet browser. So here on the left-hand side, that's what you just saw. That was a Mac operating system. This is all the same workspace within Relativity, by the way. So a workspace that our team created to take a look at and do some investigation on how these emoji render. So when viewing on a Mac operating system using the Chrome web browser, you actually get the Apple set of emoji. So even though Relativity stated that it's browser specific, if you're using Chrome, you'd think you'd get the Google set, but you're actually getting the Apple. Then when viewing on a Windows operating system using Chrome, it looks like you actually do get the Google set. And then when viewing it on a Windows operating system using Internet Explorer, you get, looks like the Windows set, Microsoft set of emojis. So again, the two on the left were actually both using Chrome as a browser, just different operating systems that look different. The two on the right were both using a Windows operating system, but using different browsers. So it appears that the display of the emoji really is more of a function of the browser being able to render the emoji characters, as well as the operating system being able to provide the emoji to the browser. So it's like they're codependent. That may have gotten a little too techy. I apologize, but I thought it was fascinating and important to note when you're doing a review in production in terms of what people get and what they're going to see. So the question I get the most often, should we use emojis in the workplace? As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, I say yes. I'm a big proponent of it. There's some studies that state that it makes you look more incompetent when utilizing emoji. Okay, I understand that, but there's more studies that state that employees are engaged, more engaged when they're able to utilize emoji in the workplace. And there's also one study from HBR that stated the proper, I think the key word there is proper, utilization of emoji in online, or excuse me, in online international negotiations can help your negotiation stance. So I think in today's times, people trying to add some tone, some context, be engaged at work, it's great, especially since we're doing all types of chats and emails, to use emoji, but it's important to have the proper use, have some proper definitional standards by the organization, so there isn't any risk or liability associated with such use. So Wall Street Journal stated, again, this is last year, last July, there's 26 million custom emojis that have been created. Part of the reason might be that Slack, React, channel, or workflow that we talked about earlier. Also, Microsoft stated that in Teams, the use of emoji was basically universal. And Slack's CTO said that one of the corporate clients has more than 50,000 custom emojis. So, Mary, you talked about being a nightmare doing a review. Can you imagine if you had to review a document population that contained 50,000 custom emojis and having to reference that library?
Oh, man. Make it interesting maybe, lunch conversation.
It would, and I like the workflow, but maybe limit it to very important, specific workflows. Getting up to 50,000 might get a little crazy, and I'm sure some employees probably created their own custom emoji of themselves. And that's what drove up the number, but still, that gets a little 50,000 a lot. So what are some takeaways? I think number one, training and awareness. You don't see this. And I talked to many organizations about, do you have an emoji policy? How do you govern emoji? Do you discuss it? Is it in training? And the answer is no. I haven't heard one yes yet. And if somebody has, I would love to hear about it. I'd love to hear what you all are doing. These ones on the left may be okay. Although the thumbs up, we talked about earlier that in that one study where they studied organizations using Slack, and the thumbs up emoji was the most used at work. Makes sense. Okay, I got the task. Yep, I'm on it. Okay, can I take tomorrow off? Yes, okay, thumbs up. But a couple other things to think about with this emoji is could that be an acceptance of a contract? So if you are texting somebody, a supplier, and they say, hey, are the contract terms okay? Are we all set to go? I know you need to start work tomorrow. Are we approved to commence? And a thumbs up emoji gets sent back. I'm not an attorney, not going to pretend to be, but one could probably argue that that's acceptance of a contract. So interesting to see if that ever comes into court. Additionally, thumbs up emoji may have a different meaning that could be offensive for some generations in the Middle East. So again, different generational meanings, different geographical meanings for certain emojis. So you could be in a contract negotiation on terms with an individual, and maybe, hey, did you agree with the red lines? Thumbs up, yeah, they look good. Now they take offense and your contract negotiation breaks down. Again, depending on the situation, really important of what to don't be creative, don't be too risky, don't get too cute with the utilization of emoji. These ones on the right, probably never okay to use at work. One can argue that if it's a sanitation company and maybe their mascot, the poop emoji might be appropriate. If you're a lipstick manufacturer, maybe the lips is appropriate. If you're a knife manufacturer, maybe the use of the knife is for certain, communications. But that would be very specific to that industry and that organization. And again, have some definitional standards around what it means and when it can be used and what types of communication that emoji could be used in. Custodial interviews, another big one that I think needs to be part of the custodial interview process is questions surrounding emoji and their use in the workplace. And are emoji going to be relevant in the matter? And if yes, where are they contained? Is it text messages? Is it emails? Is it WeChat? Is it WhatsApp? Is it Slack? Is it Teams? Is it social media? Where are these emoji do you have any definitional standards? Do you have any cultural standards within your business unit? How are specific emoji used so you can understand their meaning? And then if they are going to be relevant, make sure that an eDiscovery consultant is consulted to see how you can properly collect, review, and produce these emoji. I think it's pretty easy to see, I think in the future, a spoliation claim come up because emoji weren't produced as part of the message. And then drafting an emoji policy. This was a great article actually on Zendesk, and that's where all these bullet points came from. Well, I don't see this. I don't see organizations drafting an emoji policy, and I think it's really important that they do. What emoji can be used in what types of business communications and which ones are off limits. What are good forms of communication that are emoji happy, emoji free zone, you can utilize them. What is responsible, who's responsible for using emojis in social media? We saw with that Houston Rockets tweet, that was an inappropriate use of emoji. And there's been numerous studies around the use of emoji in subject lines for marketing campaigns that have increased the opening and click-through rates on those emails. So there's definitely some positive signs, but you need to understand what those emoji mean to your audience, what geographical regions that emoji or that email is being sent to, and what that emoji might mean different to different types of individuals. Maybe not use that emoji. That's where the consultant Keith Broney may come into the mix, because they provide consulting on, hey, maybe in this part of the world you don't want to use that emoji, you want to use a different one. And when is emoji an acceptable substitute for a word, and when is it not? I think a glossary, a cheat sheet, some sort of, again, definitional standard of that emoji in the workplace is important, and it's important to communicate and add to your annual training. And then last but not least, customers. We saw at the beginning of this presentation, only 4% in 2019 were using emoji externally. I see that increasing, but it's also important to discuss when is it appropriate to use emoji in customer communication. And as mentioned, I think it's also in the attachments and links. If you want more on emoji, an article on Evolve the Law, as well as a link to a 20-plus page white paper that goes through a lot of this information in even greater detail. And also feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to hear feedback, questions, and what your organization is doing with emoji, and especially when it comes to information governance and eDiscovery and investigation. So with that, Mary, are there any additional questions?
Oh, yeah, we definitely have questions for you, Matt. And you've got your contact information on. So for people who are listening and not looking, Matthew.Mahon, M-A-H-O-N, at Ricoh-USA.com. So, Matt, we've got some questions from our listeners. If an eDiscovery analyst wants to get into the analysis of emojis in the workplace, what's a good position or path for them? And I'm assuming like a career path and perhaps some materials.
That's a great question. I'd love to have an emoji eDiscovery analyst. It's still new. I've been speaking on this topic for 4 years. Initially, we were talking about Internet of Things and their challenges in eDiscovery and information governance and their impact. And that was about 45 minutes of a CLE presentation. And then the last 10 to 15 minutes was on emoji. And it has grown, and it was 50% IoT, 50% emoji. And then it just became a full 1 hour session on just emoji. So this continues to accelerate. I don't know if there's a emoji specific professional eDiscovery job at the moment, but it'd be great to see in the future. And if you're an eDiscovery analyst, I think someone could greatly improve their value by educating their team on the importance of the governance of emoji and the importance of asking these questions in the custodial interviews and properly collecting, reviewing, and producing these communications as well.
I think that's right. I think what you've done, Matt, is you have created an expertise for yourself in this area. So you're one of the leading lights on emojis in the workplace, emojis in eDiscovery, and you did that by learning about it yourself and then sharing what you learned with others. I think it was a couple of years ago you were in Portland, and I would say the emoji, I think it was the IoT with a little bit of emoji presentation that you did. So it's wonderful to see the evolution of it.
Yeah, because like those slides we talked about with the eDiscovery technology evolving, that didn't exist 2 years ago. Celebrite did not have the ability to collect emoji the way it does now, and it didn't show up in those reports. It has to be more of a native review of those text message strings. Relativity didn't have the relativity short messaging application viewer in Relativity, so you could view these strings this way, and then that connection between when you convert the JSON files and these text message files into that Relativity short message format for that ingestion and review in Relativity. And there may be other platforms that have this too, but that didn't exist 2 years ago. So it's exciting to see that some of these problems are being solved. It's not perfect, but there's definitely been an advancement in technology in this space. And it's necessary with the amount of emoji being used in communications as noted by these studies.
So, Matt, most eDiscovery platforms allow you to like pre-search your material and you know, tentatively tag them as, say, for PII or something like that, so that you can segregate things into different workflows. Do you know our eDiscovery tranches of material, are they being pre-coded for have emoji during review stages now?
I have not seen that yet, but I think that would be a wise idea. I think like you point out, like have handwriting, right? Different types of, so it can be maybe have a second review or have somebody that is more well-versed in potential means of emoji. You review those documents and give them a second look to see if they actually do have some relevance based on what the emoji specifically means. I have not seen that in a review workflow yet. I can't wait till the day that I do. And I would imagine that's going to happen sooner rather than later.
Fabulous. So we have some feedback from the audience that I usually don't read these things, but this is an outrageous feedback, Matt. Fantastic presentation. I've been reading up on emojis and emoticons since February 2019, and in fact did a search at the time at how they were being referred to and rendered in Canadian court decisions. This was an incredible update. So,
excellent. Well, I appreciate that, and yeah, definitely check out the white paper as well. It's got all, you know, everything sort of wrapped into one, and it can be shared, you know, with other legal teams, so people can, like I said, my goal is to educate people on the importance, and so I would hate to see a client or anybody get into any type of sanction or any type of ramification negative to their case because they just ignored emoji. They weren't educated on it. They're not that they didn't do it on purpose. It was not intentional, but just was never asked. And in today's world, it's important to ask the question and make sure that they're reviewed and produced accordingly.
Exactly. And the last question that we have coming in is, can we get a copy of the slides used in this presentation? Should they email you, Matt?
Yeah, if you want to email me, I'd be happy to share. I can send you a PDF version of this deck and share it with you. Absolutely.
Excellent. And don't forget, under attachments and links is the 20-plus page white paper that Matt referenced. And with that, Matt, we want to thank you and our wonderful Guardian partner, Ricoh USA, for making you available to us. And so thank you for this wonderful presentation, and our thanks to our EDRM community for your kind attention today. We'll see you next time on the EDRM Global Webinar Channel.